There you go. We're recording. We're all on our best behaviour. And as usual, we're all Terra Australis state nationals. That's the common denominator, as always. And you know me, Wayno, from the other 13 episodes, if you've watched any of them. And we've got two Suzannes. The Sue with the glasses has been on here many, many times and sharing her great knowledge. And we've got Sarah, who's been on here many, many times and is almost as smart. And we've got Anita from WA, and the other Suzanne is our guest for the day, and she's got lots to talk about. Is that right, Suzie? You've got lots to talk about.
I do have a bit to talk about, yes.
All right, all right. So I don't really know where to go first. Will we just cut Suzie loose, or? Yeah, all right, righto.
Okay.
Okay, so Suzie, tell us about you've had a recent adventure,
I have had it, yeah, relatively recent adventure.
a
So,
relatively recent, yeah.
so I was having a look. I've probably been stopped by I'll just call them foreign military because I have a rather long title for them.
Well,
Hang on, just let us put a bit of background in here. So,
yeah,
Susie,
okay.
you've been reconveyed for quite a while, and you've been travelling with not Vic Road plates, but different plates, correct?
Yes, so I've had about five stops. The first one I still had my original plates and I had started the reconveyance process. By the time I had the other stops, I was well on my way and then reconveyed. But
Mhm.
but even before I reconveyed, I changed my plates.
Yeah.
So I put the RPP number on there because I'd spoken to a gentleman back in 2022 who gave me advice on that. And I decided, you know what, I'm a free woman, so I'm going to live like one. And I have like the first time when I had their plates, they did take my car, and someone actually gave funds to get it back because I was adamant I'm not paying to get it back, but someone went and paid and I got it back. So um, but from there on in, they haven't taken the car because when they have pulled me over, I've been able to talk to them and, tell them that I was a national, and they are aware. Like they knew the first time when I had the new plates, there was a bit of confusion. They took my key just to, cause trouble. Friend went down to the police station, picked it up, no ID, just drive. You can drive. There's your license. Here's the key. No paperwork sitting on the counter. Um, yeah, so I didn't really have any trouble because they knew already back then that they could not damage the vehicle. Like in all the times they've said, "Oh, don't damage the vehicle; it's private." So with my recent stop, which was the November, I was quite surprised that they kept me because when you reconvey, as you reconvey and your property comes with you. So they know that they have to give that property back, which they did. Like my son went and he drove it back home. He picked it up from the demonic police headquarters. And yeah, and so the car was returned, but I wasn't. And I am quite vocal. Like when I stopped the police, I kind of want to give them an education because I was hoping that there would be some kind of common sense there. But even about a month ago, I was with a friend who got stopped and he handled it amazing and had his wife in the car and they still dragged him out of the car like this 80 something year old man, 80, 70. Sorry, Abraham, if I got that wrong. Um, yeah, but they dragged him out of the car. And in the end, I just asked the wife, took the phone and followed because I thought,
Открываю.
oh, I don't know why my computer's talking that language. Sorry. I don't know if you heard that. Very computer illiterate. So they dragged him out of the car. And so I ended up following and just like telling them off and trying to educate them on the way because they're squeezing his arms. And I'm like he's cooperated. He's not been rude. Where do you think he's going to run? Like, and one guy let go and then the other guy loosened up the grip. But these young constables honestly believe the roads belong to the government and the country belongs to the government. They are totally disillusioned. And I'm like, sweetheart, no, it's not your fault. You're not educated in law anymore, but you've got a lot to learn. Like seriously. And yeah, it's mind-boggling, but it's yeah, they literally they're so indoctrinated. There are some that are aware. My second stop in Moorabbin, which was my third police stop with my vehicle, they took my key and I waited 15 minutes, whipped out another one and drove off. So that was probably a bit cheeky, but they were on to me after that. So, but the gentleman that stopped me on that particular occasion, he knows. Like at the time, I was helping hide a young girl, protecting her from police protection. Family. What's that family? The ones at child traffic, family protection, and the police. And
Child protection services.
yeah, I'm trying to we're trying to protect this young girl, and the police traveled 3 hours down to the house of the lady who picked my key up for me. So I rang this policeman that had pulled me over, saying, like on the Monday, saying, "What are you doing sending your goon mates down to my friends?" And he's like, that's ridiculous. And when I explained to him why, he actually apologized to me. And then this young girl got taken by the police. So I started sending him videos of everyone in different states are sending me images of 12-year-old blonde girls getting picked up by police as allegedly missing. And I said, here you go, this is what you're doing, helping with child trafficking. And I'm sending him all these pictures of these girls across the country. I said, looks like someone's in town that's taken a liking to a 12-year-old blonde girl. And so there are police out there that are aware. And the PAX team in particular, like they now know, they've acknowledged that they know this is happening. So it's
I
just
want to put a little bit of clarity around this because people will come along and watch this video and they'll think we're all a bit, not nice people, but that's not actually the case. So
no.
we'll just go into reconveyance a little bit here just to clear the air and say where we are at in this whole big picture. So there's a thing called birth certificate fraud. You've been trafficked. Like the whole story is quite complex and quite long, but you've been trafficked out to sea. You're living under maritime law, and so were we. And we've done some paperwork and undone that fraud and brought ourselves back onto the land. And we are now a higher jurisdiction than the government or the police. And we're not actually bound by their laws and statutes.
And I
but yeah, go on, Sarah.
Just add into that, and this is actually based in biblical scripture. So if people are doubting it, it actually says in the King James Bible in Genesis that God made man and then gave man dominion over everything on the land, everything in the sea, and everything in the air. And all of the laws and statutes that most people, work under and think that are law are actually they're maritime law or commercial law. So it's all about the money, essentially. And that is, the Bible is the source document for all of those laws that are made. So if you go back to the Bible and you look at the Bible and you read the scripture, it actually says that, yes, man on the land has dominion over everything else. And the Bible holds all of the remedies for all of these so-called laws and statutes. Sorry, I'm just being attacked by a Kelpie here. So yeah, it sounds a little bit way out there, but there is a huge amount of research that has been done on this, and it's all over the internet. there's many, many places that you can find out about this. So if you haven't heard of any of this before and you're thinking, oh my God, these people are freaks, not really. We've just done a bit of digging in particular areas and we've found all of this out. So
we're just a bunch of normal people. I mean,
Absolutely.
and if like Sarah's talking about the Bible, I'll just give you a quick lesson in the hierarchy on this planet. I think most of us believe we were put here by a creator, and that can be whatever you conjure up in your mind. You might think it's God or whoever. I don't care who you think it is, but we were put here by a creator, and we can never be greater than that which created us. So that's mankind, and we then created governments and we created corporations. Because we created them, they can never be greater than us. Well, let me tell you, your government is almost every country in the world. Your government is a corporation, and they have no right to boss you around. Right? A corporation cannot be greater than that which created it. So anyway, let that settle a bit in your mind. That's a simple explanation of why this whole shit show doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we're not in any way a bunch of rebels, and but there are a handful of people who have been treated worse than others, if you like. I've probably been very kind saying that, Suzie, but there are a handful of people who have been not treated well, and that's because in some cases, they don't know to recognise us state nationals as being different, and in some cases they do know, but they don't care. Suzie?
Yeah, and if I can just add to that with the police, because clearly I might be sounding a little bit like a criminal, but I'm not. But when I do stop the police, I genuinely try to open their eyes, and you can tell that some of them are playing a game. Like they know and they try to get you to say things, but there are some that are oblivious. But all of that said and done, I don't hold grudges against them because I understand how this world works. It doesn't excuse the fact that you have a choice. Like I always go back to what my mum said to me, like, I taught you right from wrong, and there's two paths. And she goes, that is your choice to choose. And even though there's a system and there is indoctrination and all these things, you still have to decide whether you're doing something right or wrong. So if we say not like, I'll go to the day that I was kidnapped just before the Balti Bridge. So I'm traveling with a friend, and she noticed lights, and there's a unmarked car, and so I'm like, look, just relax, don't worry. And I've pulled over one lane, and go past, and they pull up, no, you pull over. And I'm like, oh, me, so I pull over. I've got my privately recorded vehicle plates on, and they go over to the passenger side, very, very busy road. And I'm kind of like holding my friend back because was quite nervous. And I said, look, just relax. And so I'm talking to the policeman. Well, I had the sovereign citizen sign on my dashboard that says sovereign and describes what it is, citizen, and then explaining that you can't be both. And I thought that was reasonable that, oh, yeah, they'll see that. And he straight away first tried to identify me, and I usually start off, they go, can I have your date of birth? And I'm like, do you want the day I was born or the day my birthday? And normally they ask what that is. These guys knew me. They were waiting and looking for me. They're like, is that her? So they were looking for me. That's fine. So they see the sign, and then my car's running. They haven't asked me to turn it off. They walk to the back of the car after taking photos, and at the top of their voice, oh, one of these sovereign citizens. And I'm like, no, read the sign. Like, and then they move to the back and they go, we better call for backup. This is going to escalate. And so I'm like, I've kind of pushed my friend back gently and I've gone, escalate? Like, what's going to escalate? I haven't done anything. And so then I knew straight away, oh, yeah, no, they're taking me. So I called, by the grace of God, he answered straight away because he doesn't always. But I called Ben Gardner and I said, Ben, they're going to take me. They're going to take me. Whatever you do, tell the Tacit people, keep doing what they're doing. Don't stop. Ben only heard the start. He said, Sue, I was in shock. I can't believe they were taking you. I go, no, it's okay, Ben. So, so I think the phone was still running because we're having conversation. And in the end, they came around to my side and, oh, well, you've got to get out of the car. I said, well, I want to know why. Well, you've got a warrant where you're going to have to tell me what this warrant is about. I'm not under your jurisdiction. And they, anyway, start grabbing my wrist and twisting my wrist. So, of course, I just, pull it off and he goes, oh, you assaulted me. Did you put your hand on me? I said, I think you'll find that's self-defense. I said, I'm trying to stop you from injuring me any further. Then he reached in and pressed the button, turned off the car, pulled open the door. They both grab a wrist each. They're dragging me out, twisting wrists. And then they flip me down and the guy at the back grabs my arms. The other guy grabs my legs and I'm calling out to Marguerite because I was hoping she'd get out of the car, but they threatened her. I didn't know. They told her, don't move, whatever. I don't know exactly what they said to her, but they dragged me to the back or carried me to the back of the car. And then they go, on your stomach. Well, I mean, I couldn't do anything. They were carrying me. And so they flipped me onto my stomach. And then the big guy at the back got his knee and just went wham, like right into my lower back. And like straight away, I got a spiritual message saying like they're trying to damage and cause trouble in your intestine. Like, because anyway, I won't go into that. I'll be here forever explaining why. But I just knew. And anyway, and then they, tied the hands behind the back. I had a bangle on, it was digging in. I'm like, can you take the bangle off? Like they don't care. They don't care what pain they cause you. And yeah, that dumbfounded me because even people passing, I'm like, you've got a 4'10" lady getting carried, like not fighting, and you're watching this happen. It blows my mind that people think it's okay. Anyway, in the end, long story short, I got shipped off with backup, which they obviously needed another 4 people to watch them knock me around. And took me to police headquarters, like totally dehydrated. I hadn't eaten anything. We're on our way to get a juice. And, I'd asked for my bottle of water out of the car. Oh, we'll give you one later. So off to police headquarters, they took their time. When I got shoved in their cell, number 8, they wanted to give me bread and water out of the tap. And I'm like, well, where's the bottle? And they said, we don't have a bottle. So I politely declined. And I was very, very polite. I said, no, I politely declined. And so for 3 days, they tried to give me food and water. And the second day, miraculously, a bottle appeared. One of the guys at night brought one in, and I said, well, I'm going to need a lemon with that because it's got no nutrients in it. And he goes, oh, Suzanne, don't be silly. We don't have a lemon. I said, well, you didn't have a bottle before, and now you've got a bottle. So like for 3 days, I didn't eat or drink. And I didn't really want to, but spiritually, I knew I couldn't because of whatever they'd done to my sacrum. And I couldn't afford to put bread in my body. I knew that. So I on the first night, I actually convulsed and I kind of thought, oh, yeah, no, I'm gone because I was so dehydrated. But every single time they came into the cell, like, you're not responding, they were yelling, Suzanne, Suzanne. And I'd kind of jump up and I'd have all this energy again. And I'm like, that one night I prayed, I had fairies and angels giving me water. Like it was mind blowing. And I also, like, they run frequencies through the cell. So I could hear these frequencies. And one night they came in and I said, do you know that you're running frequencies through my cell? Or no, I never said my cell, sorry, your cell. And they said, oh, no, I wasn't aware. I said, well, now you are, you need to stop that because I don't consent to you attacking me with a frequency. And then the next thing, like I got taken into a room with an allegedly, a court case, and there's a television screen and there's one little woman down in the corner, and I don't know why she reminded me of that witch from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner. And I'm just looking, I'm going, she's doing something. And so I'm turning around to the guys near the door, going, like, who is this chick? Like, why have you got me sitting in front of this chick? So they then take me out, bring me back in with a whole room full of court, fake court. And she's up in the corner again. And I'm like, no contract, no joinder. I wish now in hindsight I just turned my back and sat the other way. But, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But when I went back to my cell after that, I laid down to rest and I started getting images in my head. And there was rooms and people coming in, and I'm going, these are not mine. That's what she's doing. She was actually doing some kind of witchcraft. And so I just laid down and prayed. And then the next day, they'd done it to the lady in the cell next door as well. So the next day when they came in, they went into the lady next door first. Well, I can hear her going ballistic. Like there is punch ups going both ways. You could tell she was knocking people around, they were knocking her around, and I'm going, oh, sweetheart, this is what they want. Then they come into their cell that I'm in, and there's a gentleman there with paperwork, and then you've got the senior constable. And he says, well, Suzanne, you've got a choice. And I go, and what would that be? He said, well, you can sign the bond form or you can go to prison. I said, it doesn't really sound like a choice to me. It sounds more like an ultimatum. I said, you know what it reminds me of? And then I looked up at him and I said, take a bio weapon in the arm or lose your job. And he just went like, and then so anyway, I was off to prison obviously after that. But yeah, so yeah, I got to the prison, and look, I'm not ashamed to say I was quite emotional at the prison because they, 3 days no food and water, which is no excuse. That was my choice, but it was just the way they treated people. And initially, when I was there, you didn't have a choice. They don't let anything out, anything in. You're supposed to get a welfare. I didn't get any of that. They were stopping it. They were telling people, afterwards I heard that, I had messages from people saying, Susie, you've got to say who you want to visit. Come on, at least accept someone. Like I wasn't given anything. I wasn't allowed information in or out. And so I was a bit teary because then they're trying to do a digital ID. I don't consent, and they said, well, you don't have a say. They were trying to, I don't know what they were doing, where they were taking a photo or something of the hand. And she goes, you don't have a say in here. I said, well, that's okay. That's no difference to the outside. So then, of course, they take me into medical. And medical, I didn't give her anything, nothing. But I politely declined. I said, I politely decline. I said, but if I happen to have an issue, will I be allowed to have natural medicine? She goes, yes, of course, we can supply whatever you like. Another lie. So then she walks out to speak to the head female. I don't know any of their names, I have to tell you. No one got a name. I'll explain that in a minute. But she went out to the head female that was there and said, oh, she's refused any medical stuff. And the lady goes, oh, why am I not surprised? And I'm like, no, I didn't refuse. I just politely declined. Like, there's a difference. And anyway, they shipped me off to the prison. And we walk up the hill and, there's girls. I thought it was something they did for everyone, but I now understand they were down their reception waiting to get their medication, but they're all on the side giving me a, like, yay, like, coming in. I'm going, oh, this is nice. And they take me up and they put me in their cell, and I look up and it's cell 34. And I thought, 347 heaven, thank you, Lord. You know what? I'm here for a reason. So I after I cried that first time when because this lady came in, policewoman came into the room and said, oh, you're the third one today. And I'm like, that's it. They're not getting any more tears from me. But I will say the policewoman that came in, she was just being quite horrible. And I had a bit of a not rudely, but a bit of a talk with her and said, "Oh yeah, like Desi Freeman, like you know you shot your own men." And she goes, "Oh, don't bring that up. It's a sore subject." I said, "Oh, you've got to be more convincing than that." I said, "We also know you killed your own men in Queensland." I said, "Come on, sweetheart, try and be more convincing. We know. Like we know you went and bought the land." And anyway, she went out. I didn't see her again and went up into their cell. And as I actually, before they took me to the cell, and this may have been trying to put fear in me, I don't know, but they said, "Oh, she's a week and a half here, then she'll be a week in the next compound, and then we just chuck her in the back, which is the long term." And that was the first I'd heard of it, and they didn't get a reaction out of me because, as far as I was concerned, I know how they laid their trap, and they laid the final piece on the police stop before that. And so I kind of thought, you know what, I'll be here for as long as God needs me. And they think they laid a trap, but I know God's got me for here for a reason. And so they ended up going, and instead of being in there for a week and a half, I was there for the 15 days, but a lot of that was by my choice because they wanted to, well, I didn't want to be there in the first place, but they kept wanting me to sign bond forms and sit in front of courts, and I just always politely declined. Um, and look, so many things happened in there in such a short amount of time, but I will say briefly that when I first got there, even the first day, there was arguments against a couple of girls, and straight away it's your natural instinct to try and calm it down because it wasn't worth getting escalated about. And straight away, as soon as something happens, the guards are over and they're grabbing him and locking him in cells, which traumatizes them. And then they start blaming one another. But you screamed out, so we're getting locked up and all of this stuff. By the second day, because I'd worked this out, I slowly started giving lymphatic drainage to people. And initially I didn't know and I didn't care because I knew I was helping. And I was getting mocked, and even one of the guards was, like going like this as she walked past, and some girls were laughing. I didn't care. I don't care what people think of me. I stand in truth and I stand in love and forgiveness, and so I don't care. And by the second or third day, um, yeah, the whole place changed. Like the swearing started stopping. Like no one would be rude to me. The girls always were respectful. Like if someone was making noise, they'd yell at them, or then they'd go, "I didn't mean you, Suzanne," or like they were just beautiful to me because they were getting respect and love back, and they don't get that from the prison system. And these girls, majority of them were so gifted. Yeah, they just pump them with medication. They lock them in cells. I don't know where to start. There were so many things. There was one girl. I'll go back to the lymphatics really quickly because all these girls, some were mocking me. There was one girl that had a really swollen throat, and so I took her out on. I was out on the lawn because I was always out on the lawn barefoot, like doing laps or exercise or something. Because I never left the compound because I wouldn't admit to their fake name, and um, this girl started telling me that people were teasing me, and I said, "Oh, sweetheart, I don't care. I don't care what people say." I said, because I'm being who I am. And I saw her neck and I said, "Can I please give you a lymphatic drainage?" And she goes, "No, because I don't want to take advantage of you." And I said, "But you're not, because I'm asking you." And so I laid her down on a piece of cardboard on the ground, and even I was blown away because, like, you're on the grass, so it's even more effective when you're working in nature. And her neck just shrunk, and I'd only just started the top end of her body, and I'm like, "Oh, you've got to go and look in the mirror." I know you can't go. I haven't finished, but oh my, like I was blown away. From that point on, when she went inside, I had girls coming from everywhere. "Can you fix this? Can you fix that?" Like one girl had high blood pressure. She didn't tell me that, but I could tell by her frame once I started working on her. I said to her, "Have you got high blood pressure? Like, I'm surprised you don't have high blood pressure." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, how did you know?" And so then I started educating them on that. But you know what? My best part was when I was educating was being right in front of the officers station and giving them an education as well. Because can I say, Annavon Reitsinger came up a lot. I educated the girls, and I'm very, very loud, especially when I want to be. And so the guard station got an education as well. And there were guards coming saying, you don't belong here. What are you doing here? Yeah, so I at no time did I feel threatened. I had a girl pull a knife on me, but I knew it wasn't her fault. But I still didn't have any fear, or I wasn't threatened, because at the end of the day, even these girls in the end were trying to get me out. And they said to me, we want to help you because we know that God has sent you here for us. And it breaks my heart having left them behind. I still find it difficult, and I think about it and I think, sorry. Yeah, what can we do to help these girls and get them out? Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry.
you better have a little
Yeah.
break.
Sorry, I haven't really spoken about that. So I
Yeah.
didn't realize how emotional I was about it.
So these other girls, they're all obviously in there. They're robbers and murderers and stuff like that. Suzie, is that right? Or
I'll tell you something. We all know the WASP files. Yes.
the what?
We all know the WASP files, and we know that I forget his name, Martin Bryant.
Yes.
Martin Bryant, I am leading back to what your question. So Martin
Yes.
Bryant is in solitary confinement, which means he's in a separate part of the prison and he's in a cell for 23 hours. And 1 hour a day he's allowed in a courtyard. There's more than one prison, but only one prisoner gets let out into that courtyard. So you don't see any human life, just you by yourself and then 23 hours. We know that he's innocent, that it was all a scam. The mushroom lady is in this prison in exactly the same conditions. So I didn't watch the news. I don't know anything about the mushroom lady. My crystal tells me otherwise as well. I thought I'm going to ask the crystal. So I don't believe that she may have some involvement in it, but do I believe that she should be where she is and that there is truth in everything they're saying? 100% no. So saying that, all of the girls that were in the prison, majority of them, they shouldn't have been there. There was one beautiful girl. She was actually hanging around with the girl that pulled the knife on me. And when she went into lockup, now let me get this right. When she went into lockup the second time, I ended up having a talk with this young girl. She came up to me and apologized for her involvement in not the knife pulling, but something else this other girl had done. And we sat down and she started telling me that she had 3 children that were sacrificed taken for child sacrifice. And she goes, and nobody will believe me. And I took her and I said, I believe you, hon. I held her face. I said, but they're with God. I said, they're safe. Everything's going to be all right. I believe you. And she was so grateful. And then she told me about a tattoo on her hand, it's like the swastika, but it's the Chinese symbol or Indian symbol for peace. And so she would get picked on and called Nazi girl. So she would always cover it up. And when she went to show me, I said, oh, that's the symbol of peace. And she was like, oh my gosh. She goes, how do you know that? And anyway, she explained to me what was happening. Anyway, as we're sitting there talking and having a beautiful conversation, these other girls started coming over and they're all listening to our conversation. And I picked up on her hand and I said, do you ladies know what this is? Now they all knew that they'd been horrible to this girl. And they said, oh, isn't that Nazi thing? And I said, no, it's not. And then I explained to them what it was. And one of them said, oh, yes, I've heard that. And bang, and that was it. And then they all kind of dispersed. And this girl thanked me. I said, I did that for you, sweetheart. She goes, I know, thank you so much. And we had a beautiful relationship from then. I mean, we all look, I didn't have a trouble with any of them really, but it just kind of it made things easier for her. And the reason she was in prison was because she'd married a man from overseas, had 3 children with him, and He left her destitute, took the children and sold them for sacrifice. She was starving, stole a piece of bread or food to eat, and she's in lockup. That's just one of them. You know, another beautiful Christian girl, she not that other religions aren't beautiful too, but she was a Christian girl and she was with a boyfriend who was probably quite innocent compared to his mother and just with the wrong person and in the wrong place at the wrong time. And she's in prison. She hasn't done anything, but she's just hanging with the wrong person. And yeah, it's majority of them, like some of them might have been theft and stuff like that, but certainly nothing, you know,
I,
driving as a free woman, you
I
know.
used to work with Victoria Police, and I'm going to put it out there. That was one of the, and it was quite a while ago, but it was one of the best employers I've ever had. I found pretty much by and large those guys were amazing to work with. If I ever had any trouble with bullying or, you know, stuff like that, and there was a little bit, as soon as the others found out about it, it went away. They were amazing people to work with. And it really makes me sad that this current crop are not like that. Okay, so I just want to put that out there that I have very mixed emotions about police. My time there was truly, I went into working for police after I'd had a nervous breakdown through bullying from someone who ironically was an ex-copper and had been, there was a question about did he fall or was he pushed out of the police?
Yeah.
And so they really, really looked after me when I went in there. They knew I was a bit not broken, but a bit hurt. So they really did a lot to rebuild me. So there's that part of it. But one of those guys, and I remember he said to me one day, because I was reading a file on a criminal, it was like this thick, and I read through it from start to finish, and I looked up and I said, this girl shouldn't be in prison. He said, 80% of them shouldn't be in prison, Sarah. 80% of them, it's the wrong time, wrong place. He said they have done nothing wrong. It's just that circumstances have caught up with them. And he said they got the wrong lawyer and they're in there. But he said 80% of people should not be in there. He said, you know where most of the master criminals are? Not in prison.
No.
And so I would believe what you're saying, Sue, because yeah, I just
I'll
anyway.
I'll tell you something else because I actually don't think that it catches up with them. I don't think that's what it is. I think this is all spiritual. I noticed on the first two nights when I was lying down in their cell on their bed, all the heads faced towards the window, and I could feel something. And I thought, okay, you know what? And I'd get up in the morning and the girls would go from one extreme to the other. And I thought, nah, they're doing some kind of frequency. And the second night I felt that. So I started leaving my bed set like that, sorry, their bed, and then I'd go to bed and I'd flip it the other way. So after they did the count, you know, I never stood near the door. I always kind of meditated because prisoners had to stand near the door and I was a kidnap victim. So I never ever stood where they asked the prisoners to stand. And so I set my bed up after they checked so that my head was the other way and then it stopped. I could not feel it. So I would get up every morning, open my cell like grand rising, because I taught the girls no good morning. And so everyone's grand rising when they remembered. And I'm like, did you feel those frequencies last night? And after a few nights, like some of the girls are coming out, oh, did you feel those frequencies? Like there was some of them that could literally feel them. You know, it was, yeah, it was amazing. So it was there was a lot of girls in there talking to spirits. I actually had to get assistance with one to speak to the outside. And I knew that they'd hurt my hip, but I didn't know exactly what. And I've got to the point with my lymphatics in my body that I can pray and I'm not going to say I can heal myself. I mean, I can through prayer and through the, you know, the power of Jesus and with God, I can self-heal. But that something wasn't working right. And she got a message to me as we were talking through this girl. She got a message to me as I was walking off, and this young girl called out and said, oh, you know, such and such said, be careful of your sacrum. They've damaged your sacrum. And so from then on in, I started concentrating on my sacrum because you know what, when you stand in love and forgiveness and truth, you can self-heal yourself. I had a broken wrist and woke up one morning and there I could feel two hands holding and one hand here pulling, and I was adamant, like without a word of a lie, I will not step into a hospital or a doctor's office again. And by the grace of God, they fixed my arm, and it's the same with my sacrum. So I never ever say what I don't mean. Like even when we went to Canberra, I went with a couple of gentlemen the first time, which was the second time, which was that big weekend, and they wouldn't go back again after that because, we all got attacked with the LRAD. And I'm like, but wouldn't you prefer to die fighting than sit at home and do nothing? I mean, Canberra did nothing now, I see in hindsight, but you've got all these people marching in Melbourne going, I'd rather stand fighting than die on my knees. But they all seem to have just slipped
I
back
don't
in.
think I don't think Canberra did nothing. I was there that weekend, the big weekend, and they were
Beautiful weekend.
absolutely running
It
frequency
was
there.
amazing, yeah.
It was amazing. And they were running frequency. And I think what that actually did, there was one girl I talked to, and she said, she said, I come from a small country town. And she said, I thought I was the only one that thought like this. And
Mm.
she suddenly found that she had this whole family of people who she wasn't weird. She wasn't the odd one. She wasn't the weird one that didn't get the jab. She wasn't the only one saying our government's corrupt and what are we doing about it. She suddenly found that there were millions, and there were millions. This 10,000 people in Canberra. I mean, I don't know what they were smoking, but whatever. There, there were millions there, and she felt for the first time in a long time, she felt normal.
Yeah.
And so I think if it helped people that way, and if it showed people that there are actually, what did they say? They said something like 1.4 million cars through. And you think about,
1.4, yeah,
yeah.
1.4 additional cars.
And if you think about the fact that every car had two people,
Yeah,
that's 3 million people.
yeah, yeah.
That's 3 million people. So when we're talking about the tipping point, because it doesn't have to be huge, 3
No,
million people out of 25 million is not an insignificant number of people.
no,
And
no.
it frustrates me, like you, Suzie, that we all, and I know Jodie Lowe's been doing a lot of work about this too, trying to bring all of the tribes together, because that's where our power lies, is bringing us all together. We've all got things that we can contribute. But I think when going back to your experience, I think one of the first things that Anna has said is we need to go into the prisons and get rid of all the people that are in there that shouldn't be, because
You know
most
what?
of them shouldn't be there.
No. And can I say, when I was there, the amount of trainees that were coming through was mind-blowing. Like mind-blowing, the amount of people just, you could see at the bottom of the compound every day, 50, 80 people coming in. They're training heaps and heaps of these guards. Whether it's or not, it's because they turn them over quickly. I don't know. Because
Maybe there's that many going out the other end, Suzie. Maybe they're sick of it. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm hoping that it is, that they're slowly going through. Because look, I had one lady, but just going back to Canberra quickly, I was crying the whole time in the walk because I was exactly that, Sarah. I was like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. Like it was very emotional. It was amazing. Yeah, so yeah, so I had one lady in the prison, like, and this was early on, and I said, she'd actually given her name, and then she popped her head out the door and said, "Oh, don't use it, I'll get into trouble." I said, "Oh, never, never." And I said to her, "Please don't change." And within a day or two, her whole outlook, her whole expression, everything. And I went up to her, and she had a guard sitting beside her, and I just tapped on the counter as I was on my way out, and I said, "You lied. You said you wouldn't change." And I walked out, and then, the other ladies go, "Oh, what's that? What's that about?" Anyway, I felt bad. And the next day I actually went back and I said, "Excuse me." And she was sitting by herself. I said, "You know what?" I said, "I just want to apologize for making you feel guilty." I said, "Because I understand that you were only doing your job." I said, "But I had no right to make you feel guilty because you just want to keep your job." And she thanked me, and that was it. And so from that point, and it's probably the only thing in there that I had felt that, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Because every other time, and I wasn't ever, I was never ever a, let's say, smart ass. It wasn't done arrogantly or anything, but you know what? I didn't give them anything. I didn't give them a surname. If they called me, they either said Suzanne or they didn't get an answer. And they did everything they could. They were giving me wrong meals and, because I stipulated certain things that I could and couldn't eat. And you've got to fill out a medical form. In the end, by, maybe the third day, I said, look, just give me the meal. And she goes, don't be rude. And I said, oh, I'm not being rude. I said, this has gone to the kitchen twice. It's gone here. I said, just give me the food and I'll sort it out with the girls. I take my food, so they're all watching, and I walk over to the tables with the girls, and they're like, oh, what have you got today? And we're all sitting around this table. We open up and they all start pulling out stuff I can eat. And they were actually feeding me, because sometimes I'd get a roll and I don't eat bread because I just can't digest it. All those chicken feathers and stuff that they put in real bread, it's not good. And so I would get a salad sandwich. I'd open up and you've got the bread and you've got a slice of cheese and tomato. So tomato was my food. And these girls, you can't do that. And I'm like, you know what? And I'm educating them on what you can and can't eat. And they're like, we're bored, we're hungry. I said, look, do your best to eat what you can here, but remember when you get out, and just educated them on what they should and shouldn't eat. I wrote a lot of them notes on how to look after their lymphatic system, and I was completely busy and occupied. And I do want to say, though, I don't know how long I've been talking, but I want to go back to that young girl with the three children. There's something I wanted to tell you about that. I was sitting inside one day, and this was after we'd done the talk with the peace symbol, and she knocked on the window, the kitchen window, which looks out onto the compound, and she called me outside. And there was heaps of girls out there with her, and I went out, and she's crying, and she pointed up at the sky, and she goes, look. And I looked up, and there were three rainbows in the sky. And she's crying. She goes, that's my boys. And we're all hugging and crying because we knew that God had given her that. Yeah, there was just some amazing moments. It was that these girls started supporting one another, and stopped taking their medication. So they had to get me out of there as best they could, because I had them doing lymphatic work. Like one girl locked up in a cell, I was yelling up to tell her how to stop her psoriasis from itching, and she's bending down in the vent going, it's working. And I'm like, well, why do you think I'm telling you this? And so they stopped putting on topical creams. They stopped getting medication. Like it was beautiful. And I called out the guard on it, and said to him, like, you're just big pharma pushers. And he goes, I didn't say that. I said, sweetheart, you didn't have to. It's obvious. God bless you. And I walked off. And this is always respectful, but you know what? I don't take credit for any of this, because all of this is by the grace of God. Everything that I experienced, everything that I was able to help these girls with, I credit to him. I don't think that I'm so intelligent that I thought to do this or that. I didn't go in there with the plan. I went in with the knowledge that I had from TASA, that the knowledge I had learned about the certificate and the surname, and I just stood in my truth, but I didn't allow them to accuse or push me over. Like if they say stand beside your cell door, I say, it's not my cell door, it's your cell. I'm a kidnap victim, but I would stand beside it. All the other girls would stand in front of it, and they'd come up and go, why aren't you standing beside your door? And I'd squeeze up tighter to the door. I go, I am beside the door. She goes, well, I've got to see inside. I said, well, I am beside the door and you can look in. Like they just, they just follow instructions. Like one of them was mocking me, and I'm like, what do you think you're laughing at? Do you think this is amusing? And they'll tell me off for talking, and I'm like, well, okay, if you behave and respectfully, then I won't talk. If someone burps up the line and you blame me, if you accuse me, I'm going to let you know it wasn't me. So don't accuse me of something I haven't done. So I stood my ground, but I was always polite. But that being said, when these girls said to me that when the girls, like, I don't know, the innocent inmates said to me that, they noticed the guards were starting to target me in particular, they were kind of wanted to do something. And I just said, sweetheart, like, don't worry. I said, God has trained me for this my whole life, and everything that I could experience, I can imagine things that have happened to me that I thought were negative, that I actually learnt things from, that I pulled from, and I wouldn't, apart from getting knocked around, I wouldn't have changed a thing for the world. I just, it was an amazing experience. And the only person I probably was worried about was my son, because he had watched my mum get murdered and saw, like, 12 years prior by this organization, and he knew how traumatic that was, especially like he watched what I went through with that. And my whole concern was, I just need to see him and let him know that if something happens to me, that he needs to pull together, and it will be an awakening for him. I said, don't, if something happens, there is a reason for it. It won't be because they've killed me, it's because it's part of God's plan. So do not, that was where I stood. And I actually believed after the middle week, when they cancelled a couple of visits, that this lovely guard from another prison came in and had organised for me. They ended up cancelling it, and I'd resolved myself to, yeah, no, I'm dying here. Like, you know what, God, if that's what needs to be done, if there is a purpose, then I'm yours. I'm happy. I will stand by my rights and the rights of freedom, and we'll see where this goes. And
So, Suzie, how did you get out in the end? What actually happened? Because I can tell you, just so anyone that doesn't know the story, Victoria Tassa, in fact, Australia Tassa, or Terra Australis, we all knew about it. We spoke to PKTF. We were making welfare calls every day. There was a lot of people trying to get in touch with Suzie. There was people to get in touch with her family. There was definitely the PKTF definitely knew that she was okay. They were getting reports every day. So it wasn't like Suzie was in there and we weren't doing anything. We were outside, the same as what happened in WA with Callan, the same as what happened with Nathan in Queensland. There is always going to be people calling you. That's the PKTF's job, and they do it very well. And they do welfare checks every single day. Okay, so it wasn't like out of sight, out of mind. But Suze, how did you get out in the end? What happened?
okay, so I will explain that, and back to that. 100% I knew people were calling. There was also mail, emails. I didn't get anything until I was going to be released, and then the day or the night before I was released, they handed everything across to me. Yeah, so go mind blowing. So it came to the 2 days before I was released, and I that week, like in that second week, I had lots of workers from outside coming to see me, like, you know, I don't know, physios or people that didn't work in the prison but specifically came in to work with the girls. I'd kept turning them away because I'd be sitting at the table, and they say, can we talk to you? And, I'm a such and such. I can't even remember the titles now. And I'd said, well, I don't have that problem, so I'm not interested. And I'd send them away. Then by the time it came, 2 days before I got out, a disability worker came up, and the same thing, can I talk to you? Anything you've got to say, you can say in front of the girls. And she tells me she's a disability worker, and I'm like, it's okay, I don't need your help. She goes, well, no, we want to help you get out of here. You don't belong here. And so I sat down. She had a huge talk with me, and I did cry again because I told her about my mum, and I haven't cried about the murder of my mum for a very long time. And since I got in the freedom movement, actually. But anyway, and so she arranged. Yeah, she arranged the next day for paperwork to come, and a bond form was given to me, which I'd always politely declined because I haven't committed a crime. And also, I must credit the gentleman who from the other prison that visited me, because I had a lengthy talk with him, and he said, Suzanne, what is it going to take to get you out of here? And I said, I intend on walking out of here as the free, innocent woman that I am. And he just laughed and said, I'll do what I can, but I don't know if I can do that. And so my bond form came with absolutely no conditions on it. And I signed it V.C. and then just to be sure, under duress, and then Suzanne dash, you know, Francis certified. And the second in charge is like, is that her signature? And the lady turned around to him and said, she can sign whatever she wants. And so yeah, the next day, I went to bed still not expecting, because because they'd made that's what they do. They make promises. You wake up in the morning and then they want you to get irate, and I just never gave them that. So I got out the next day, and that was nice, I guess. But it was so that's how I did sign. I signed VC under duress, and back to Tassa again. Like, can I say, look, the papers work. Like, they gave the car back straight away because they had to. And in all of the stops, they couldn't take the car. They knew they couldn't damage the car. They did take number plates, but they always gave the car back, because when I reconvey, my car reconveys with me. And that's why they should have given me back as well, because, they just didn't. And in regards to the police too, Sarah, I don't hold grudges against them, because I understand how this world works. I should say comprehend. Let's not understand. I comprehend how this world works, and it took me 2 or 3 days to forgive them for the way they treated me. But I do understand, and I don't like, even in the rallies, instead of yelling outside the police station, I used to stand out, and I didn't go to a lot of rallies, but I used to stand in front of a group of police. And I would say, why do you think it is that the federal police standing beside you and the MPs don't have to get a COVID injection, but you're walking amongst them and you do? I said, what? Think about it. Like, just use some common sense. And they just look at you dumbfounded. And the occasional one will say, oh, we're not allowed to talk. Like, so they're all under surveillance, and they all have families to feed. And I mean, all of us did. I didn't really like that excuse, because I thought everybody
Yeah.
has, but it's all
So,
segregation.
what sort of a world do we live in? Did they like? Did they actually charge you with anything, Suzie? Did they? How
No.
did they justify keeping you there?
Well, they were trying to get me to either sign a bond form or sit in front of the courts. And I said to that lady that day, she said, I'll put you in a court now. Because from the first night I was in there, they were constantly trying to get me in front of a court. So that's where I say it was my choice, in that I wasn't going to sit in front of a fake court. And I've seen it from the court side, and now I've seen it from inside, and they do not let you speak. You don't know. They manipulate things. Someone in the freedom movement actually helped develop the camera, or the system to manipulate the police camera. So I know they had footage. I know they had footage, and I know they would have said that I drove off on one of my police stops, right? I don't know if I'm jumping everywhere now. I've got so many things in my head, but like, I've totally lost track. But the second last time before, like, they grabbed me, was back in April. So I got taken in November. This was back in April, and in April, at the end of this conversation, they were lovely, and at the end he goes, I can't let you drive away now, Suzanne. And I said, I'm sorry, I've got somewhere to be. Well, he cut me off, and he goes, I'm going to step back now so you can go. And I'm thinking, oh, that's weird. They would have manipulated the camera and made it look like I was driving off. So I'm assuming that these police, apart from labeling me as a sovereign citizen, which I think you said was around since the 80s on one of the talks, I think, Sarah, I heard the other day, or 70s or 80s, that,
It
or
was
someone.
invented, yeah. It was actually invented, I believe, by the CIA or some such group and it was invented to be a derogatory
Yeah, but
term
it's been
to
around for
put
a
to
lot longer than we think.
yeah, and it wasn't used for a long time, and then now in the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's been reinvented and put back into use, if you like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
So
to answer your question, um, I haven't been charged with everything because every single stop, like the first one when they actually dragged my car away, I don't open any of their letters because they're not addressed to me. But my ex-partner had opened a letter and it was dated the 11th, and they dragged my car away on the 13th. And allegedly, this corporate trust was going to lose its license on the 18th. So they actually took the car earlier than they should. They've actually want me to fill out paperwork to get the money back. But I'm like, you're going to send it to me in my name. So I don't bother answering them because, like, keep your $1,000. That I'm not going to renegotiate with you just to get money back. But I must say, they never ever gave me fines or anything. They only ever had the post in care of the post office. That's it. But they originally that I was registered in an address in Ocean Grove but I was honest with them. I said, well, that's where the corporate trust is registered. And they say, well, do you live there? And no, I live in my skin. I said, the corporate trust is registered there. And they said, well, do you ever go there? And I said, no, but if you try and lock me in one of those ring of steels, then there is a slight possibility I may end up there. I said, it's just so you can't lock me in your ring of steel. I said, so no, I've never been there. So they knew I'd never been there. And they knew the only thing that would possibly, um, you know, allow me to go there. Anyway, that's not an option now because the police were turning up apparently, and it was someone's holiday house, and they had all of this mail which they just threw out, like, whatever paperwork they were sending to the trust, and the police kept coming and knocking. And 12 months later, like, these people ring me and saying, can you change the address? And so I wrote to the foreign military and I said, look, I said, I'm not a commodity. I said, I'm a living, breathing woman, and you don't have any control over the trust. It's a reconveyed trust. I said, so you need to stop hassling these people. And I'm a little bit naughty because I always chuck in Freemasons, blah blah, and a bit of stuff, in the hope that some extra people will get an education. But I do it politely. But yeah, I don't kind of hold anything back. But I just think that's standing in truth, and I don't do it out of any malice. I honestly think that maybe some of them will see it and will
well,
you know.
I tell you what, Susie, it's a courageous stand that you've taken, and I mean, you've um, you've managed to do some good. I think. You've,
Look, I really felt my time in the prison was, I felt I needed to be there, and I just hope and pray that these girls, I know a lot, like a few of them have said they're going to go out and they're going to make different decisions, like they're going to leave the city, like the city is demonic. And yeah, so look, I do feel that I did good, and I feel like a lot of the guards got an education too. I do just want to say quickly, and I do lose some people here, but the head of the prison, at one point I was getting punished. They don't tell you why, but when they called me, and I finally went in when they called me by the correct name, this gentleman, now, I don't know, maybe a meter and a half away from me, I could have sworn this was a real man. And the girls had told me about him because he was the head of the prison and he had a tattoo of a naked female on her knees in chains, crying, getting raped on his arm. And anyway, I'm kind of glad I didn't know that before I went in on this because I probably would have had a go at him. But I'm so pleased, like, not had a go, but had words with him about how inappropriate it was. But he started punishing me, and the punishment was he took my kettle and he took my television. And I'm thinking, yeah, thank you, it was taking up desk space. And And then he said he was going to take a curtain, and I didn't hear what curtain because I was stuck on the kettle because I thought, oh, I need to get the filtered water. And I said, you can't take my kettle because it's, I'm human rights. And he goes, and what are they? And I didn't want to be a human, but I really had to be for this. And I'm like, and I said, look, um, I'm entitled, according to the Human Rights Charter, I'm entitled to healthy and living food and water, nourishing food, water. And he goes, well, you've got a tap in your room. And I said, oh, well, that's not hygienic, is it? It's toxic. He goes, that's all you've got, really smug like. And he was expecting a reaction. And I looked up at him and I said, well, thank you very much and God bless you. When I said God bless you, I just like stared at him and he's in a deep growling voice. He's like, don't you say that to me. Now, in the process of him saying that, I'm just staring because he shimmered. He wasn't even a real man. He was a projection. And I'm like, initially, I actually thought, is this a reptilian and he's losing the ability to shield himself? And I'm just sitting there and he's yelling, don't you say that. And I'm like, how interesting. You have a fabulous day. And I walked off. And the guy at the door's snarling at me because obviously I didn't even really realize what I'd just seen. But he's snarling because he thinks, oh, she knows that,
Yeah.
Anyway, trying to get me in front of a court, and it was amazing. I was chasing him everywhere, like because I didn't fully understand then what he was, and I'm like, God bless, like I'd be running around the oval, and God bless, and anyway, now I'm like, oh, you idiot, he wasn't even a real man. So,
So
Oh,
I actually think going back to that situation where I said I'd been bullied by someone who was an ex-copper, I had a similar experience one day.
yeah,
It was a literal shift in front of me, and I was like, huh, weird. That's interesting. I didn't know they did that.
it's
So
mind blowing.
I think there are a lot out there. So yeah, but we should get you back on one day to talk about that. Fred would be in his
Yeah.
element, but we'll
yeah.
get
I'll,
it.
I'll tell you.
We always end up with woo-woo stuff on this talk.
I'll tell you something though, like, oh, what was I going to say to you about? Oh no, it's gone. I was gone. But to do with how the work, no, that's what it was. The bond form. I didn't look at any paperwork until I actually got out. And so I opened up the bond form in the car and I read it to my son. When I got home and pulled it out again, and this is mind blowing, there was different things listed on the list of charges. And I'm like, they were not there before. So, yeah. So there's a lot going on in this. Yeah, there is a lot going on in this world, like a lot. And the trick is that when you see something, don't think, oh, did I really see that? You have to trust in yourself because this world, like the one girl in there was saying, oh, the furniture won't stop moving. And I knew she wasn't crazy. Like, I'm like, yeah, okay, I've met a couple of people that can actually move landscape. So I used to think God wiped this joint out, but now I'm like, this is an amazing time to be alive. Like amazing. It's not easy when you're getting attacked and stuff, but you know what? I thank God every day that He's given me this opportunity to be here to help with this. And yeah, I feel really blessed. Yeah.
Well, it's a great yarn you've told us, Susie, and I'm just so pleased you come on and told us all about it. There's going to be people that watch this that think, oh, she brought it all on herself, or all this fucking woo-woo stuff, or whatever. But we know that it's not like that. We know that what you're saying is what happened, and we understand.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people are understanding, and it nicely segues into what Anna wrote about this week.
Yep.
So she only wrote 2 documents this week, not 14.
Well, you're going to get a quiet time of it, aren't you?
But yeah, very much. I think that there's a lot more people waking up to the reality of what actually is out there.
Yeah.
And we've got more than just humans walking around, or people who are color of man walking around. I think there's a lot of shifters out there, for good and not so good, let's say, because ultimately we are all born of source. It's just that some of us choose a much, much longer way to find our way back there.
Yeah.
And as you've said, and as I've found out too, that the things that come along to test us are usually there for a reason, and we come in
100%.
better and stronger for it.
Yeah.
But
You think that they're negative at the time, and then you get in these situations and you go, oh, that's why that's why I remember this. That's why this happened. Yeah, it's
yeah,
yeah. But I will say, like going to the freedom movement, and you're talking about trying to bring people together. Like we are going to do a talk down in Derrimut next weekend,
yeah,
because I think what a lot of people don't understand, and this is, there's a lot of people out there with good intentions, and egos do come in, and un unfortunately this is the importance of being humble, because the minute you are not humble, or you lie, or any negative emotion puts like a crack in the etheric field, and that is what connects all of us.
yep,
So the minute you do it, you don't even have to be near someone, like they just see that gap and bang, and they're in there. And so that's why, like my mum always said things like, honesty is the best policy, because lies can cause these cracks. And, you know, if you've got nothing nice to say nothing at all. And I'll tell you one more, because I think this is important, and that is always remember that there's someone worse off than you. Like I had a friend who's a psychologist one day. I told her this story about when I was a kid that traumatized me. Like I've got to say I had a beautiful childhood. I feel quite privileged and blessed, even though that means be less. But anyway, that that I grew up with the family I did, and I didn't even realize how lucky I was at the time. But I told this person this story of something that happened in my childhood, and she said, "Oh, your mum shouldn't have said that. She didn't allow you to recognize the trauma and understanding how the world works." I kind of thought, no, I think it's nice to not be absorbed in your own trauma, and realize that there are people worse off. Like I feel so lucky really with the life that I've had, and I always put a positive spin on it, on things. Like I think that's important. People have to do that. Like there was a lady that went through sexual abuse and all of these horrible things in the system, and everyone's getting on Facebook going, "Oh, you poor thing," and I'm like, no, no. God bless. That's before I knew what bless was. God bless. Like, how amazing are you to be so tough and strong, and stand up and now share that and help others. Like, don't feed the negative. Always feed the positive. I never see a negative anything. Like, yeah, the police believe that they set me up, and they did what they did, and their plan was to cause trouble with my bowel, and they feel like they were successful in that. And there's been more attacks to try and implement what they wanted, and they're all failing, because it wasn't really their plan. They think it was their plan, but it was God that put me in there. And so they don't realize that yet, but everything is for his glory and his
Can
paths.
can I just say, because we've got a couple of other things that we want to cover. The 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 knee in the back, that's a deliberate, that's designed to do deliberate harm to your body. Is that what you're saying?
They are designed to deliberately hurt. So one lady that was in there, she was 61, had a broken wrist. They left her broken with it the whole time she was in there. It was just disgraceful. With my back, I never ever sought any help for it, but I straight away I got a message that that's what they're trying to do. So I was so careful about what went in my body. But yes, 100%. The way when you damage someone's sacrum, that's at the start of your nerves, and it just does so much damage to your when you damage the sacrum, it's kind of the stable point and the start of the spine and everything going up. So, they don't have to knee you in the back in the sacrum. Like, I mean, you don't have to do anything to a 4'10" woman, you know, like I'm not very
They could
intimidating.
have picked you up and thrown you, probably.
Yeah, they could have. Yeah. I said crazy,
All
but
right. Well, we'll get on to these couple of other things. I really appreciate your story, Susie, and if you've got another story to tell, we'd have you back any day, I tell you.
Yeah,
yeah, no, thank
if
you.
anyone wants to get Susie back on, let us know. I might try and reach out to Callan and Nathan and get them on as well, and they can tell their stories. Anita, you might check in with Callan and see if he'd be happy to come on one day.
I'm sure he will. But whatever Suzanne was saying is what's exactly the same pattern as what's happened with Callan.
Yeah.
And also, I know someone else who went to jail, and there was a guy with a broken arm. He got treatment in hospital, and when he entered back into the jail, they took everything off him, the sling, everything off him. And another person that was in jail, another man, he had a broken leg caused by them, and he had to sit through it. They were not giving him any medical attention. So when Susie was saying about the broken wrist, that's just how they do things. So
Yeah.
I will touch base with Cullen and see if he maybe wants to come onto one of our chats for sure.
Yeah, good.
Um,
Righto, Sarah, what are you going to tell us about now?
Righto,
I'm having a really easy day today. I usually do a bit of talking. Thanks,
you
Susie.
are.
You've done a great job.
I'm never short of a word.
No, I can see that.
So the first document that Anna had was called The Liars Have Exposed Themselves. It was a public notice. And basically, she's just saying that the corporations and lies have all been shown up for what they are. She's demanded that the public be fully informed. The bar members must repent, and basically everything's been taken care of. So things are going apace, I believe. Then the last one that she put out was a Granabites, and it's calling all angels. So she's now talking to all of the people that are suddenly looking at their hands and finding that they've got M's in them and things like that. And stars and crescents and all sorts of things. And she's pretty much saying that all of us have healing abilities in our hands, which we do. If anyone's ever studied any of the energy energy medicine, so, you know, Reiki or massage or whatever you want to call it, we all have the ability to heal. When mums pat their kids after their kid's taken a tumble and they kiss their forehead and stuff like that, that's all healing. So she's talking about that. She's saying that, you know, even warrior angels have healing powers. She's also talking about many of us, she's not the only person saying this, but there are among us many angelic souls from a prior universe who carry the memory of the first dawn of life. So when we created this planet, they're coming back to kind of finish what's going on. And she also talks about another group of people who walk amongst us, and I'm just going to quote here, gentle beings whose mission here is to give triage to the millions of trauma victims who have suffered spiritual wounding, energetic template damage, and other injuries that are unseen. They will be moving among you and living among you. You will recognize them by their pallor, their bulky build, superhuman strength, pale eyes, and gentle, sensitive manner. They move quietly but swiftly, and when they work on you, they hold you in a magnetic grip that levitates your weight effortlessly. You'll feel the blessing of their touch. They'll be as solid and physical as everyone else, but apparently you can't hurt them. And really all they do is they come up to you and they're friendly and respectful, and their voice will be oddly comforting, and they'll say something simple like, here, let me help you with that. And they will actually help you heal. So she's pretty much talking about all of us getting back in touch with our bodies and our hearts and our energetic bodies, because that is all going to start playing a much bigger part in the world that we live in. So that's pretty much all she had to say this week. So kind of ties in with what Susie was saying, in that we have others walking amongst us. Yes, there are others who are not on the same path as us, but there are others who are. They might not look like us, or they might look like us, but they're out there and there's plenty of them open to helping.
Well, yeah, I think it's way more crowded down here than what we actually thought.
Well, did you hear that thing the other day? A guy got onto, I don't know, whether it was ChatGPT or Cloud or one of them, and said he asked about the 8 billion, because, we keep getting told 8 billion, 8.2 billion, whatever. And he said, is there actually 8.2 billion? And whichever one it was came back and said, well, actually, when you think about the Chinese one child thing, when you think about the massive drop in population around the world, that fertility is falling off a cliff, when you think about this, and that, no, the population is probably, best guess, about 5.2 billion.
Wow.
So we're not as crowded as we thought.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting watching things over the next couple of years, and seeing just what works out, because I know that, jab injuries are still coming through. But yeah, I'm a bit excited. I'm looking at what's going on in Africa. You know that I'm keeping my eye on that at the moment. And West Africa's basically thrown France out. And now, so France is going over to East Africa and saying, oh, we'd like to come and help you educate your youth and do this and do that. And they need to, because, France is always saying, oh, we've got the best power in the world. We've got, all this nuclear power. Where do they get the uranium from? Not France. I'll give you a big tip. It's coming from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they can't really afford to lose Africa, but they are. They're getting thrown out. If only we could throw out whatever powers are in here.
Yeah, a few subtle changes going on around the world, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
We need to start seeing a few subtle or not so subtle changes in this country, but it'll come. It will come, and I have no doubt about that.
I hope so. It always sticks with me. I know we will get finished in a minute, but it always sticks with me when I said to you one day, they've got coal coming, and I'm going to get the countries wrong, but they've got coal coming, say, out of the Congo, and they've got gold coming out of Burkina Faso, and they've got uranium coming out of Namibia, and they've got all these things. And you turned around, Wade, and you said, we've got all of those things here. And we do. We are one of the richest countries in the world, and with one of the highest taxed countries in the world, and we get no service for it. And we're just letting these corporations walk.
That's probably why we may be amongst the last to begin to change, because they're so embedded here, because it is so big.
Could be.
I mean, there would be other countries around similar, but
New Zealand.
Too much.
anyway,
Yeah.
change is coming, I have no doubt.
Indeed.
I don't know what day. I can't tell you when it's going to start. Have we got a word of the day? We do. Peonage.
Peonage or peon, yes. Basically, I don't know why, but they link it back to infantrymen in Malaysia and Sri Lanka. I have no idea why.
Yeah, I didn't look at that. I did an ebook a while ago, over a period of about 2 years, and I come across peonage, and I looked it up. Then I've actually done about a 6-minute video on peonage, and I'll put the link under this video. But I'll quickly read you what I had to go back and look it up. I couldn't remember, but so peonage is a form of forced labour where a person is compelled to work for another to pay off a debt or an obligation. It's a type of debt bondage, also known as debt slavery, and is considered a form of involuntary servitude. The key element of peonage is the lack of free will. The worker is essentially forced to work under oppressive conditions due to the debt. All of the above is relevant only because you are a victim of the birth certificate fraud. That would be my words, but yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Not a very nice thing.
No, especially when you find out that we're all under it, or living in it until we reconvey.
Just stop paying council rates and see what happens. That's exactly what happens.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first thing you've got to do really if you want to change anything, the first thing you got to do is understand that sort of stuff and accept it. Because until you actually understand it, and take it on board and say, well, that's how it is, you can't actually do anything about it.
No, that's right.
Acceptance is a huge part of it.
And that's where the education part of it comes in. So when we were talking about way back at the start, we were talking about the birth certificate fraud and stuff.
Yep.
Anita put some links up. Wayne, I'll put them in an email to you so that you can put them under the, in the description on the chat about the dead baby scam and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I saw them come up.
That'd be very good. I'll email them.
You do that.
Other than that, I think we're pretty right. So
Suzie, when you're not used to what we do with all of this, but I'll put the video on my YouTube channel. I'll email the link to Sarah. Sarah will put it up on
on
Telegram.
the welcome chat in Telegram.
I'll send. I've got your email now. I'll send you the link so that you get it personally in case you're not too sure where to look. Then you can replay it and send it to all your mates, or if you know anybody else that wants to come on and chat.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
And thanks for highlighting that there's a prison on the inside and there's a prison on the outside. I also found that one.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I thought I want to just let everybody maybe do something fun towards the end. I've got 3 dogs myself, and I know that Sarah's sitting with 3 dogs as well. If you want to get high energy into them, just take them and kiss them on their little heads, all of them, and then see what happens. They go ballistic for at least 2 or 3 minutes, running around, having fun, biting each other in a playful manner. They just lose it, and then they calm down, and it's all because you've given them each one kiss. Try it. It's good fun.
That's simple.
That's simple.
Yeah, I think sometimes we look at animals and I think, yes, some of them have a very tough life. But the ones that fortunately we all know, I took my dogs for a walk, or my dog and my mum and dad's dog for a walk along the beach last night, not too far from where we are. And, where we take them, they can run off lead and they can go up into the scrub. And Mum constantly is saying, look, that is the absolute embodiment of happiness when they're just running around and sniffing in the bushes and just being able to run free. And she said when you look at that, you know what joy looks like.
They love you unconditionally, eh?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, a bloke told me once, he said, if you put your wife and your dog in the boot of the car and come back 15 minutes later, you see which one's pleased to see you. It'll be the dog.
Won't be the wife.
I don't suggest that you try that, but
if you want to save yourself, don't do that.
don't do that.
Not advice, people.
No,
not advice.
No, it wasn't advice. No. All right, look, I reckon we've come to the end. I really appreciate you all being here. Suzie, you can come back any day you like. Just contact Sarah or myself. If you say I've got another story to tell, we'll have you back here in a flash.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you all.
Appreciate your energy, all you others, all of us, and we'll see you on the next call. Good evening.
See ya.
Ciao.